This is the Freedom Fighters Podcast, keeping a watchful eye on the news that matters.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chuck and Joe and the Freedom Fighters Podcast. Glad to have you today. Today is April 28th, Tuesday, 2026. We're going to start off today with a few newsreels. I'm going to have a new section each time where I'm going to go into today's news, but I'm going to start off with a couple other little interesting stories first. We'll go through the daily news and we'll wrap it up for today. First of all, I would like you, if you would, to smack that like and subscribe button below. Doesn't cost you. It's free. Just hit that. Keeps my algorithm up. I appreciate anyone who would do that. If you like the video and you haven't liked it yet, please like it by the end. And if you'd like to subscribe, we'd like to welcome you to the Freedom Fighters Podcast. Comments are welcome and encouraged. All you have to do is comment below in that section. Everything is down there. All right, let's start off here. All right, I want to talk to you a little bit about the DOJ and the 2020 Georgia elections. Now, I know that you all have probably heard a lot about the 2020 elections. Just going to bring you a brief overview about things that I'm learning, just sharing them with you. First of all, I'm getting a lot of my information from Brian Maxwell. He's Real Politics Podcast, just wonderful podcaster. If you would like to look Brian up, please do so. I'm sure that he would love to have you join his podcast also. Very informative. Okay, so we know that the FBI raided Georgia. Georgia fought back with their Supreme Court trying to get the boxes of information that was taken. We also know that the FBI leader in the Georgia part of the FBI around Atlanta tipped off several people so that they could get some of the evidence out, but they were not able to get all of it. Now, I've told you before in my podcast from the past, and this has been a couple of years ago, I reported this to everyone about how Venezuela was involved in the first hijackings of all the elections around the world and the first Venezuelan election that it was used in. We all know Maduro is in custody right now and that Trump is going to use him to fight the DOJ because he does in fact know what happened and how they used it and where they got the information for the computers, which they actually got the computers from China. Taiwan then made everything, on the disk drives or whatever. However you download the computers, they put all the information in. Then they were sent around the world. When it worked around the world, they sent them to the 2020 elections here in the United States. They were pushed by another body, which we'll go into later. And of course, when that happened, they were planted in each state that they could put them in, and which is a majority of our states. And then it was rigged. I've got a little bit more on that for you. So stay tuned for that. You're going to really love what I have for you for that. But anyway, the DOJ, they're, involved in investigation and debunking this 2020 Georgia because there's been so many people claim that it was a conspiracy and that President Trump indeed is a felon. Well, he's not. And I would love you all to do your own investigating. Go to Promethean Action. The women there have been involved in politics and also started their own podcast way back in the late 70s. They have been pushing to show Britain's involvement in all this and to show exactly what went on with our 2020 elections. Let's talk about privacy. And let me tell you, the Democrats want plenty of that, right? Until it comes down to them knowing what's going on in our elections. As an American, the biggest and most important job that I have as an American, other than being a mother and my family, is to vote. People died so that we could vote, folks. Many people died so we could vote. Women, we didn't even get that right until the early 1900s. Don't think that your vote doesn't matter, because it does. I think Trump's proved that in the past elections, even in the 2024 election. We needed it too big to rig. And that's the exact truth, okay? So there is a foundation that Brian Maxwell backs, and it's called fundtheaudit.com. Fundtheaudit.com. Please look that up, join it, help so that people can continue to work on this outside of the DOJ. The people that brought this information to the FBI originally and to Tulsi Gabbard were indeed people outside of the government who had many years, studying, following leads, following the money, seeing what was truly happening with our elections. And these men and women, we need to think, because they did basically all the hard work. They turned it in to Biden's FBI, which was not followed and unfortunately was never investigated. They continued to investigate. They've lost people. People have been killed over this. And you can keep learning about this. Look it up. Please, I encourage you. And like I said, Promethean Action will give you a definite step up to learning about all this. But if you can, fundtheaudit.com and Brian Maxwell's group would really appreciate your help so that they can continue to have people from outside the DOJ, CIA, FBI, etc., the government, people outside of those entities to keep helping so that we know for a fact, without conspiracy, what has really gone on and is going on. I want to talk to you about stuffing ballot boxes. Now, we know that ballot boxes were being stuffed in the 2020 election. It's a given. It's what happened in Georgia. We all go to sleep. President Trump's way ahead, and I mean way ahead. Most people didn't even think they had to worry about it. If you're a Democrat, I'm not trying to rub this in any way. I'm just trying to prove a point here. Please understand that. When we went to sleep, he's way ahead. We wake up in the morning and lo and behold, he's won. What happened? Well, election day has turned into election week, has turned into election month, and it's despicable, folks. No ballots are to be turned in, according to the Constitution, until 6 o'clock on election day. That's it. After that, they don't count. People extending them, these states that are extending them, are indeed breaking the law. But what they're doing is, when they're extended, they don't have to go in front of all these poll people. So it gives them a lot of room for mischief. I'm going to call it mischief. You could call it a lot of things, but I'm going to stick with that. They have not as many eyes on them, and we're able to bring in many ballots. In fact, I don't know if you realize this as an American citizen. In some states, you are indeed allowed to bring in more than one ballot. That's right. Up to 15 in some, and no number in other states. You can just bring them in. Say you're bringing them for a friend, a cousin, whatever. That is unconstitutional also, folks. Very unconstitutional. That's why we need the Save America Act voted in, which again, Thune is not doing. So anyway, back to the ballots. What happened is they started noticing when they were looking through the boxes things that had gone on, in addition to what had already been discovered by the many people outside of the government that these papers were turned into the FBI. And they noticed that 147,000 mail-in votes were turned in after 6 o'clock on election day back in 2020. The first thing they thought is, are they counterfeited? And they thought this for 4 reasons. The majority of what they brought in, and there was over 30,000 of them that they found to be fake because they were made of different paper. They were not printed on the same paper. And if you know anything about our elections, they have a special paper that they print these on so they know, just like a dollar bill, $100 bill, if it's been counterfeited. The paper was indeed different. On top of that, they were not folded. To get an absolute ballot, an absentee ballot, you have to get it through the mail. So it has to be folded, which means a machine folded the ballot, correct? And it was sent to you. You fill it out, you return it. None of these were folded. It was a great question. There were some of them folded that were the correct ballots, but the majority of the bad ones were indeed not folded and on different paper. Let's go a step further. There's a bubble mark on them. Now that sounds funny, but there really was. You could tell also by what was printed onto the ballot that 97% of Joe Biden's was made by a machine, which this machine was not the actual machine that was supposed to do it. So it was a different kind of writing, which looked really odd. They picked that up almost right away. And the last thing was the bubble marks are not made with pen or pencil. Most of these were made by pen or pencil. The bubble marks themselves are made by a machine because it's a bubble mark. Now, how they got a pencil to try to do that, they didn't, because it didn't work, folks. When you ask why this matters, well, when you bring in ballots after 6 o'clock, that's questionable anyway. When you're bringing them in real early in the morning, I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, there's a question as to why that's being done. Right off the bat, that hits a high note. We need to pay attention here, right? Well, then on top of that, when you turn it in and you start noticing these 4 things that I just listed to you, actually 5, then there's a real cause for concern. The highest number of fraud that they ever saw in government, as close as we call fraud in elections, was done like 20 years ago, and it was like 3 or 4 ballots. Folks, we're talking 147,000 ballots were turned in. Over 30% of them were fraudulent. Now, just to prove a point, they thought they would go a step further. They took an analysis batch of 950 ballots. These were military ballots, 950. And this is a matter of public record. Check into this. This is not hearsay or conspiracy. Nobody made this up. They took 950 votes, or excuse me, they took 950 ballots. Of those 950 ballots, 950 votes went to Joe Biden. You heard me. 950 went to Joe Biden. Trump got 0. 0. Now, whether you like Trump or not, this is a mathematical impossibility. Impossibility. There is no way also that these would come back in order. And those 950 came back in sequential order. Folks, that doesn't happen. When ballots go out, they're sent here, 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 all over, right? They come back at this time, nighttime, 2 days later, 10 days later, 5 days later, different dates, different times, different counties. These came back in sequential order. If that doesn't stink, I don't know what does. I just was really intrigued when I heard all this and thought I would pass it on to you, my freedom fighters, to tell me what you think about this. And I encourage you, please, go read about the 950 ballots that were used in Georgia with the military and the 950 to 0 and the mathematical inequality, impossibility. I'm not trying to sway you either way. I'm trying to tell you folks that we need safe and secure ballots. We need safe and secure elections. I want my vote to count. I know you want your vote to count, which is the way it should be. So think on that, everyone. Give me your comments down below. How do you think that this can better be fixed? How do you think that they came up with 950 to 0? I'd like to hear your thoughts. All right, moving on. along with the ballots, I learned this from a very good podcaster named Neil Johnson. It's called the Secret 15.71 Code. Okay. Paper ballots, folks, is what we need. I'm going to just stick this in there. Paper ballots we need, and hand counts in your state. If we had paper ballots and hand counts, there's no way for machines to go in and get rigged, for numbers to be incorrect, yada, yada. So do me a favor, folks, before I get into this, call your representatives and your senators. Tell them that we want free and clean elections, not rigged. Free and clean elections, because that's what America's about. All of us want the best for America. That's what it's about. If you want to call John Thune, his number is going to be listed up here. My husband is going to put that in there, Chuck, with his number directly to his office. If you have a rotary phone versus a cellular phone, just a home line, you do have a 1-800 number also, which will be listed right up here in the corner. And then also, if you would rather call the United States Capitol Switchboard and you want to speak to John Thune, but you also would like to speak to your representatives, which I encourage you to do, the number will be listed up here also under the United States Capitol Switchboard. Okay, now, I also want to stick my neck out here and talk to South Dakota real quick. If you live in South Dakota, contact John Thune. Tell him how we are absolutely upset with the way that the Save America Act has been handled, and that we do indeed need to go into a filibuster. I know he listens to you because you vote for him. We across America are frustrated with him. We'd like South Dakota to get in on this and really come down on him hard. As far as I'm concerned, he's a rhino. Republican in name only. Now, I'd also like you to go over to Neil Johnson's video. It explains in depth what I am giving you just a little bit of here today. If you'd like to know more about it, please, like I said, go to his podcast, Secret 15.71 Code used in Texas and Utah. So there you have that. When you do send this stuff, if you have to email it, that would be great. Do that too, in addition to calling. Also, if you can get on X to your senators in your House of Representatives, folks. John Thune's in South Dakota, do that too. You guys hit him hard. Ask them this question, especially if you send the video of Neil Johnson's podcast. Ask them, why is the same exact 15.71260866957 code running in our state? This number they found, just like they found over when I just explained this to you, sequential numbers. These were all in sequential order. And what they're doing is taking the first names of people who go in with like the whole alphabet. They get A and B. If your last name starts with Abbott or Boyd or whatever, take A's and B's, they multiply those, and then they send them out everywhere. Now, I know that's a little bit quick and a little bit less than he goes into it, Mr. Johnson, but we need to find out why there were thousands and thousands and thousands of this number in sequential order, just right on down, in each and every election that was held that year. We need to ask them the hard questions, folks, and share that video. The truth spreads when we work together to spread it. Remember that, freedom fighters. Remember that, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, I don't care. I just say Americans, because that's what we are. Enough on that. If you'd like to know more, like I said, go over to the other podcast. All right, so today I'm going to start highlighting a few things that are new. I'm just going to give you some different little bits and stuff on a couple of different topics, so I'm not making quite as long as videos. I'd like to keep you up on what's going on around the world and in the world of politics here in the United States. Sorry, I have cats and they like to get in here. Someday I'll introduce you. I hear him in our kitchen, as a matter of fact. I'm going to speak to you about several things. I'm going to start off, first of all, with letting you know that if you have not subscribed to me, please do so. Chuck and Joe and the Freedom Fighters podcast. But also, another one I would like to tell you about is True Life News by Joel Murrow, I believe it's pronounced. He's amazing. All his facts are checked, fact-founded, and I find him to be a very credible source and a wonderful journalist. So if you join me in maybe supporting Joel, that would be wonderful too. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the Iran war. Just to let you know, some good news. Ships are passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, finally, for now. We know we've had this before, but as of this point, today, April 28th, they're passing through. We do know that indeed Putin met with Iran. We don't know what went on behind closed doors, but sources have let me and several other podcasters in on a couple of secrets, one of them being they think Putin is maybe jumping in on this. Let's hope not. Okay, so we'll just discuss the rest of that another day. Okay, we also have oil ships passing through and nothing is being done to them. So let's praise God for that. And also we know that nothing has blown up, which is another great thing. We are still going through and checking for those mines that were set by Iran. They're sure not helping us do it. Okay, another very important thing is the UAE is leaving OPEC to create a strategic partnership with the United States. That is so amazing, folks. So amazing. They are indeed the second most important oil dealer in the entire world. And the Arab nation has become very good friends with Trump, and they are in his new group, which I think it's amazing that they could put so many people together from around the world, not NATO, who doesn't seem to want to let anyone in that is not of a certain descent, and that's the way I see it. But I say welcome to our Arab brothers and sisters. Thank you for trusting our president, and we're glad that you're here. Trump's literally shifted the whole world's oil supply towards America. What more could we ask for, folks? He's got us taken care of. If we can get the United States back in order, he's got us taken care of for many years to come. And hopefully, at that point, when our budget is caught up, we can continue to help others around the world. The UAE is also the world's second largest producer, which I told you, and can now pump freely without OPEC restrictions, which they're really tickled about. And moving on, let's go to Iran. Iran did send another proposal over to the Trump administration today, which was denied by the Trump administration. Again, I do understand where President Trump is coming from. He has offered Iran at least, I don't know, I would say 10 to 15 proposals. What have they done? Each and every time we send our important people over, they've walked out on negotiations. Trump made it clear several nights ago that J.D. Vance and his team were not going to go back over, that they would work with, I believe, the Palestinians. And don't quote me there, but I think it's the Palestinians they're working with that are in between us. And they told until they got something good, from Iran, because they know where the United States stands, that we're not going back over. It's like a 16 or 18-hour trip over there and that much back. And I honestly think that people are wearing down. And it was good that Trump put his foot down for his cabinet. But just to let you know, it was turned down, and so we're moving on there. Let's pray, everyone, that we can find peace for all of us. Pray for the Iranian people and pray for their administration. Even though they won't pray for us, God says turn the other cheek, and we pray for them. So we're going to do that, okay, freedom fighters? I know we're angry. Just keep your comments nice, please. Say what you feel. And as my dad used to say what you mean and mean what you say, but do it in a nice way, okay? I'm going to turn thoughts to Anthony Fauci, just a man we all love. And in case you don't know who Anthony Fauci is and you've been living under a rock for the last 8 years, he was our lead doctor also a scientist, yada yada, for the Obama administration and into the Biden administration. And he had a senior advisor that helped him, and his name was David Morens, I believe it's pronounced. Forgive me if that's the last name is pronounced wrong, but David Morens. I wanted to bring you a little note on this, that we might actually get what I call some punishment for what happened with COVID and the making of the actual virus. Turns out that Anthony Fauci, senior advisor, has been federally indicted on covering crucial records related to the investigation. That's right, folks. He's been indicted. That means that the information went in front of a grand jury, and the grand jury themselves decided to bring them up on charges. And when I say them, we're hoping to get Fauci in the end. But right now, and they are doing that on the origins of COVID. They're pushing Fauci, his senior advisor, they're pushing Fauci and his senior advisor to get evidence, to go through and get Fauci a different way. Because Fauci has been pardoned by the Biden administration, at this point, we have to honor that. Now, do we know that President Biden actually did that? No. I have a feeling the autopin jumped up and said, I'm going to pardon Fauci before I leave today. And there it happened. Okay. No. I had to say something smart because I actually feel that way. But anyway, until we prove what way, that went at this point, Fauci, we cannot touch at this point. But they are getting David Morens in. And because of Biden's preemptive pardon, they're having to go after him a different way. Now, the charges for David Morens he has been charged with conspiracy, destruction, alteration, falsification of records, concealment, removal, mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. This is just huge. I'm just really glad that this is finally happening. Fauci was involved in so many ways, lied to the American people in so many ways, and so many of our rights were given up during this time. And it was all planned, folks. The Democratic Party had a huge hand in this from the Obama administration up. And I believe that this all started back with the Bush administration. A lot of things happened with 9/11 and so on, which I'm not going to get into. But right now we're going to say Obama on. I'm not pointing the finger at anyone until they're proven guilty. At this point, we all have to consider them innocent until a court of law says different. Moving on, the Trump administration has just found, and you're going to find this interesting, 14,000 people, food stamp recipients, driving luxury cars. Now, we could sit here and whine about this all day. We know the neighbors down the street get food stamps. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, okay? But I know as Americans, we find it hard to even qualify for the smallest of things. We notice everyone else getting everything. And I'm going to be honest, it's frustrating. Now, if you're an immigrant that came in the right way, you are an American to me. If you are an illegal immigrant, you are not an American to me. You do not deserve things that I have paid into my whole life. And if you are driving these luxury cars, like it's being said, you don't deserve that. If anybody deserves it, it's the American people who have lived here and paid their taxes, paid taxes on paychecks every week, grinding since they were 13, 14 years old, working summer jobs, working college jobs, going into careers, working at a restaurant, cleaning toilets, being a president. Doesn't matter. If you paid in, you're an American citizen. If you paid in, you deserve things. Now, I don't really think anybody that's on food stamps should be able to get a luxury car like this, but I'm not talking about a BMW. No, not talking about that, folks. We are talking about Lamborghinis and Ferraris. What the heck? Really? What the heck? Why wouldn't you have to sell your car? I mean, I just don't understand that. I really don't. My dad always said, the more you make, the more you spend. I get that. I do. And it's probably true of most people. However, I don't see, even in my neck of the woods, people driving around in Ferraris. Okay. Especially illegals or people on food stamps. And believe me, we've had to be on food stamps in our lifetime. I am not saying anything bad about people on food stamps. I just feel if you have a Ferrari, there's some more to be looked at there. That's a little strange. Okay. And that is a confirmed audit. And there's proof to this. Okay. Not a hearsay. Next, as a massive federal investigation is unfolding as, a massive I can't talk. Let me try this again. A massive federal investigation is unfolding as we speak right now in Minneapolis. You ask what this is? Well, there are huge raids. Boy, I don't know. I can't say this word today, folks. Laugh with me. Huge raids happening across the board, all targeting foreign immigrants. Okay, and when I say foreign immigrants, that's ones that are not vetted, ones that do not have any business being here. They've not taken a test. They came across our border illegally. And they have been stealing from our taxpayers, right? Across the board. These have been led by J.D. Vance and, of course, our head of DOJ now, Tim Burchett, from the great state of Tennessee. The FBI has already raided today over 20 locations. I believe most of those were in Minneapolis, if not all. But they indeed reached 122 search warrants, which were executed in the state of Minnesota, going back and being held by and being enforced by J.D. Vance and again Tim Burchett. I say, God bless you. Thank you for straightening these things out. Thank you, J.D. Vance, for sticking your nose out and being such a wonderful vice president. I don't think you hear it enough. We hear more about you as a vice president than I believe in any other vice president in my lifetime. You are very knowledgeable, very smart, have been in the armed forces. I'm sorry, my cats are now fighting. You've been in the armed forces. You are loving. You are a Christian, a Catholic at that, and a very, very wonderful man. We're glad you're our vice president. Thank you for taking down the deep state. And Tim Burchett, I don't think I could say good enough about you either. I love your work with AEPs or UFOs, however you say it these folks' days. Tim, you said in a podcast once that you didn't feel that you were getting anywhere and that you were frustrated. Sometimes you just wanted to give up. Well, don't give up. We, the people, love you. We, the people, count on you. And we, the people, need more congressmen, more representatives in Congress like you. You're a wonderful man. Thank you for showing us that members of Congress can be good after all the failures that we've seen. All right. Now, last thing I want to really get into is USAID, which I'm going to just do this quickly. We know that they're gone right now. The deep state's getting very upset because they can't push money around. If you have noticed, since USAID was taken down, that left-winged marches, left-wing get-togethers, whatever you want to call them, have virtually stopped. And you may ask why, if you've noticed that around the country. Well, it's because they're not getting funded anymore. These groups were being paid by USAID through donations by the U.S. government. Yeah, like we knew that, right? And people like George Soros. Folks, I can't believe that they would take money from the U.S. taxpayers and give it to fund people to go out and march against our own government. Now, if there's not something wrong with that, I don't know what is. And if the Democrats can't see there's something wrong with that, well, they shouldn't be leading our government. I think that they're in the wrong country. Okay. And to cherry top everything right now, wait for it. The The Democrats breaking the law in Virginia. This is my last story, and this is to you, Virginia. Pay attention. Virginia was having a hard time with a lot of rules that I brought to you guys a while back that they were being introduced to from the Democrats that were voted in. Well, lo and behold, we have now had the midterm elections in Virginia. And poor Virginia, they are having it tough. The Democrats there stole the election again, folks. And this is not hearsay. As soon as they gerrymandered, as they wanted to, Virginia was split. 5 Republicans to 6 Democrats in the United States Congress. Well, during this election, the midterms, it was brought up that they wanted to gerrymander the rest of the state. They evidently somehow, lo and behold, put this through. And it was going to go to 10 Democrats, representatives in Congress, to 1 Republican. Well, thank goodness for the Virginia Supreme Court. Virginia and Virginia Supreme Court, we in Indiana, we salute you. We salute you, we pray for you, and we thank you for standing up for our democracy. It was turned in the next day. The Republicans made their move and said, no, we're not going to do this. It's not going to be this way. And sure enough, the Supreme Court voted in favor of doing away with the gerrymandering and keeping it right now at this point, 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans. They broke the law. The Supreme Court said, no, it's not happening. They were refusing to pause the lower court's order while blocking the certification of the election. So they also said the election's not going to be certified. This is not happening, not until we get things in order the way it should be. Justice is now being served, and these Dems are still trying to break the law. Well, truth always prevails, good always prevails, and God always prevails. Watch out, Democrats. You're officially going down. It seems that the courts have now seen through your self-love, your hate of America, your downright rude and lawlessness of your party. I'm ashamed that we even have a party like that. I am, especially in America. And I want to give a special thanks to a red state, Florida. And I'm going to end this here today with you folks with Ron DeSantis. He's been a thorn in the Democrats' side. Putting in a new district map. He's held that off for just a little bit, folks. He's held it off for just a little bit. He decided to wait to see what happened in Virginia. He understands what's at stake. Hakeem Jeffries wants to be Speaker of the House. So he recently informed Mr. DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, that we're going after Florida. And this is a quote, unquote. Jeffries said, we're going after Florida. Well, this is what DeSantis says, quote, unquote. Please, oh, please, I'll pay for you to come down to Florida and campaign. I'll put you up in the Florida governor's mansion. We'll take you fishing. We'll do all this stuff. There's nothing that could be better for the Republicans in Florida than to see Hakeem Jeffries everywhere in this state. Our voters will not like what they see, will not want what type of ideology you have, and so the door is open. The invitation is out there. Well, there you have it. I don't think I could have put it any better. I don't think Ron DeSantis is scared a bit. Do you folks? No, and I don't think the state of Florida is either. He also went on to say, I do feel bad for the guy because he's as left as they come. He's always going left, and yet the far left hates him. They call him a dollar store Obama. They call him a Pak Sharia. These different derogatory names that they do so to harass him. He's trying to integrate himself with the beliefs of everyone, but they are just not drinking the Kool-Aid. So they give him a hard time. I kind of feel bad for that, but please be my guest. Come to Florida. We would love to have you. End of quote. And that, folks, is my show today. This is Chuck and Joe and the Freedom Fighters podcast. Please watch the short that we have of DeSantis. I will see you Friday. Have a great evening, and thank you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We love you. Good night.
Watch. Our message to Florida Republicans is F around and find out. If they go down the road of a DeSantis dummy mander, the Florida Republicans are going to find themselves in the same situation as Texas Republicans, who are on the run right now.
Well, Governor, said that too early. Are you frightened tonight?
Well, we will not be cowed by threats from some machine politician from Brooklyn, although I have invited Hakeem Jeffries down to Florida to campaign because he claims that somehow Democrats are going to be able to do well in Florida as a result of redistricting. I will pay for him to come down. We'll put him up in the Florida governor's mansion. We'll take him around the state. Nothing would be better for Florida Republicans than for voters in Florida to see Hakeem Jeffries as the alternative. And so I would welcome his presence in Florida, and I know it would benefit our Republicans.
What do you